welcome to my channel. My name is Riley and this is Paint the Town Red. Hi, so as you may have noticed, this is the very first video on my channel, so if you somehow found me, thank you. I thought the perfect way to get to know me would be to go over my top 5 favorite books. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying I have not read very much fantasy at this point in my life. As you'll probably see, I'm starting to branch into it, but at this point, like, I've only read like very, very low fantasy or like magical realism, just like elements of fantasy. So my top 5 kind of reflects that. There's not much fantasy in it, and I think that once I start reading fantasy, that'll change. But yeah, so at this point in my life, going back to like when I started reading, I'm gonna go over the top 5 favorite books in no particular order because I'm terrible at that. So let's dive in. The first book I'm going to talk about is All the Bright Places by Jennifer Niven. This book, I genuinely think I just read at the right time because I think that the things that I was going through in my life made my reading experience of this better because I related to it more at the time. I think that it is funny, emotional, but it also makes you feel seen and related to, and I love that about it. And I think although it's not maybe the best depiction of mental health in a book, I think that it definitely addresses certain topics that are important. So this I gave 5 stars. I read it a couple years ago, and like I said, I really genuinely think that the time in which I read it greatly impacted my enjoyment and the impact that it left on me. If you don't know what this is about, it's about Violet and Finch. Finch is kind of seen as the school freak. Each day he finds one thing that kind of convinces him to stay alive, and Violet is grieving. She's grieving the death of her sister, and they both meet on the ledge of a bell tower, and they kind of save each other, and then they team up on a project to discover the wonders of Indiana. And throughout the book, you get to kind of experience their friendship and how it grows and how they get to know each other, and you also get to explore Indiana with them. So pick up the book, go along for the ride. The next book that I'm going to be talking about is House of Holo by Crystal Sutherland. This book is weird. It's strange, it's great. The atmosphere that she creates throughout this book is amazing. Like, I couldn't stop reading and I felt like I was there, and like I could picture everything so vividly, and that's something that I love about a book, when it can create an atmosphere that feels so real that you think that you're living in that world. And honestly, I think the story just took a direction that I wasn't expecting, and that's what I really loved about it, and that's why it stuck out to me so much. So I did give this 5 stars. Obviously, I read this relatively recently, and if you don't know what this is about, it's about the Holo sisters, Iris and her 2 sisters. When they were younger, they disappeared from the street, just like vanished, and then they reappeared a month later, and they had like a scar at the base of their neck, and they couldn't remember what happened to them. Their appearance also started to change. So their eyes went from blue to black. Their hair turned from like a dark color to like white, and just weird things happened around them. It kind of talks about like what happened to them then throughout the story, and then it also is following like a now timeline. And Iris is like 17 years old, and one of her sisters disappears again. So the story is about figuring out why her sister disappeared, what happened to them for that entire month that they were gone, and trying to figure out the mystery. The next book that I'm going to be talking about is 10 Tiny Breaths by K.A. Tucker. I don't see this book talked about a lot. I see her other books talked about, but not really this one. I read this forever ago, like genuinely forever ago, and I think that's still in my top 5 because it's one of the only books that made me so mad. I was at a track meet and I threw it across the track. Like, that's how mad it made me. And I think the reason that it made me so mad was because the twist that happened. I should have seen it coming, but I was so utterly attached to these characters that I didn't want to believe it, so I like pushed it out of my mind, and then she actually did it, and I was shocked. I was mad, I was irritated, and I think that's like one of the signs of like a good book is when you don't see the twist coming, or you do see it coming but you don't want to believe it because you love the characters so much. Like I was attached to the main character Casey. Like I didn't want to believe it. So that's why this is still on my like favorites. If you've never read 10 Tiny Breaths, basically it's about a girl named Casey whose parents, boyfriend, and best friend died in a car accident. They were hit by a drunk driver, and she was in the car, but she is the only one that survived. Her and her sister, who I believe wasn't in the car for some reason, they were staying with family, but they ran away down to Florida with 2 bus tickets to like start an entirely new life to get away from Michigan where they were currently staying. And while in Florida, restarting their entire worlds, Casey meets their neighbor Trent. And as expected, the neighbor next door being super hot, Casey and Trent kind of start having a thing. And then everything falls apart. And it's the story of them, basically. So that's the best kind of description I can give you without ruining anything. And I genuinely think it might not be as good as I remember. Just read it. I think that you should read it. See for yourself. The 4th book of my top 5 favorite books that I'm going to be talking about is The Gracier by Kim Liggett. This book surprised me. I had very low expectations going into this book. I don't know why, because since I've read it, I've heard really good like reviews of it, but I just didn't have high expectations for it for some reason. Honestly, I couldn't even explain to you what it was about. The story is just good. It's a good storyline. It is a good concept. I think that it was built and written out well. I think it just has some surprise elements in it, and that's what kind of caught my attention and quickly moved it up to my top 5. I read it for a book club, so I really wasn't expecting anything, and then all of a sudden I was reading it and I genuinely couldn't put it down. I couldn't put it down. I finished it super quickly. So I'm gonna read the inside of the dust jacket because I think that'll do a better job of explaining what it is than I ever could. So here we go. It says, "No one speaks of the Gracier. It's forbidden. In Garner County, girls are told they have the power to lure grown men from their beds, to drive women mad with jealousy. They believe their very skin emits a powerful aphrodisiac, the potent essence of youth, of a girl on the edge of womanhood. That's why they're banished for their 16th year, to release their magic into the wild so they can return purified and ready for marriage. But not all of them will make it home alive. 16-year-old Tyranny James dreams of a better life, a society that doesn't pit friends against friend or women against women, but at her own Gracier draws near. She quickly realizes that it's not just the brutal elements they must fear. It's not even the poachers in the woods, men who are waiting for a chance to grab one of the girls in order to make a fortune on the black market. The greatest threat may very well be each other." So basically, men think that they are seductive. I think that's the best way to put it. Men think that women are seductive and just going to lure them into bed. And they think that in order for them to rid them of this power, they have to send them off, banish them for their 16th year so they can get rid of their magic. And while they're there are people trying to grab them and sell them on the black market to make money. I love it so much. Just like reading that made me super excited. I really want to reread it. I just think the concept is so cool and so unexpected. And it gives me like the world that she created gives me chills. So I think everyone should read this, and that's my rant about it. Okay, the final book that I'm going to talk about probably isn't even that good, and I admit it, but I'm gonna be honest, I guessed the ending, but I didn't guess the whole ending. It just kept going. How do you keep going? I literally guessed the ending, but the ending wasn't the ending, it was just the before ending. I don't know how to explain it, but without further ado, my final book in my top 5 in no particular order is Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. You know, This book is a wild ride. Like I said, I guessed the ending, but it wasn't the ending. So I think that it takes a weird turn that I wasn't expecting. So maybe you will, maybe you won't, maybe you'll hate it, maybe you'll love it. But this is another book that I could not put down. The atmosphere and the vibes were sketchy. Basically, this girl like is getting paid to stay in this apartment, house sit, if you will. There's like a bunch of rules around it. I don't know. If you haven't read this or you haven't read any of this author's work, you need to. They're worth it. Maybe not all of them, but they are worth it. This book is good. Although it is like purpley, which is like one of my favorite colors if you can't tell, but like it's good. So these are the rules that I was talking about of the place that she's being paid to like stay at. No visitors, no nights spent away from the apartment, no disturbing the other residents, all of whom are rich or famous or both. Let me kind of tell you what it's about. Lock Every Door is about Jules, who accepts the terms and conditions because she is heartbroken, she is broke, and she is desperate. While she lives there, she runs into a fellow house sitter named Ingrid, and Ingrid is not sold on this place. She thinks that's sketchy. She is suspicious of the building's past and thinks that there's something going on beneath the surface. And Jules just kind of brushes it off because she literally has no choice. The next day, Ingrid goes missing. Who would have thought? So after Ingrid goes missing, Jules kind of is like, wow, maybe she's right. So she kind of starts looking into her disappearance in the building, and after her digging and discoveries, she has to try and figure out how to unmask a killer, expose the secrets of the Bartholomew, and escape the building, all before she dies. So this is one thing after another, literally one thing after another, and it's a wild ride, and it will definitely have you on the edge of your seat, anticipating everything. And if you think you have it figured out, let me tell you, you probably don't. So those are my top 5 favorite books that I have read as of now. I'm sure this list might be different next year. I have some really high hopefuls this year, to say the least. But thank you guys all for watching. I know this isn't like a typical first video on YouTube, but I thought that a great way to get to know me was to get to know some of my current favorite books. So yeah, thank you so much for sticking with me until the end of this video. I thought a fun thing to do, since it is my first video, is to do 2 truths and a lie and have you guys guess in the comments what the lie is, just to see what you guys think first impression of me in this video. First, the first time I was on a plane, I jumped out of it. 2, one time me and my friend waited 2 hours to get into a speakeasy in Seattle to buy one $20 drink. And 3, I really do not like sushi. So comment below what you think is the thing that I am lying about. And thank you so much for being here again and like sitting through my first video ever. If you liked the video, feel free to give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, the notification button, the bell. That's what it's called. How do people end these things? If you liked the video, feel free to give it a thumbs up. It'll really help me. And if you want to stick around, subscribe if you so please, or hit the bell so you're notified when my next video goes up. I'm gonna try and post once a week. Might be ambitious for me, but let me know if you guys have any questions for me, anything you want to know about me. Let me know your favorite book. I'd love to know. Thank you so much. I'm just so happy to have finally made this video, and if you're seeing it right now, it means I posted it, so that's even better, because I don't know if that's actually gonna happen. So thank you guys so much, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye.